Neats, it's EKG. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Hope you're doing very, very well. Today I will be hitting you with 10 short book recommendations for those of us whose attention spans are on E. There's nothing in the tank, okay? So I just thought I'd curate a list of 10 books that fall underneath 200 pages. The first book that I have to mention is such a good one. It is James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room. Giovanni's Room follows our main character, David, as he moves from America and lives in Paris. Within living in Paris, David gets involved with a bartender there whose name is Giovanni. The story follows their relationship, David's like self-loathing of him loving another man. It's just a very beautiful, complicated, and tragic story. If you're in the mood to travel but you cannot right now, I definitely recommend reading this. Some of the most beautiful descriptions of Paris and the Paris lifestyle juxtaposed to living in America was super interesting. If you want to read a romance, if you want something that is emotional and will make you feel all the things, all the feels, I definitely recommend Giovanni's Room. I like to relate music a lot to books on my channel, so if you're a Frank Ocean fan, you should for sure read Giovanni's Room. Next book I want to mention is another shorty, The Lost Daughter by Elena Ferrante. The Lost Daughter follows Lita, who is like a middle-aged professor at university as she's on summer vacation at a coastal Italian town, and she gets into this very interesting dynamic with this younger mother-daughter pair and this family that Lita is very intrigued by and sees a lot of herself in. This has a lot of beach vibes, and if you are a person who enjoys following female protagonists who are writers who are facing like these insecurities surrounding motherhood and their changing bodies, I would definitely recommend The Lost Daughter. Up next, I'm going to recommend Sula by Toni Morrison. This is a recent read of mine, but I absolutely loved it and I can't stop thinking about it. So Sula follows our two main characters, Sula and her best friend Nell, as they grow up in a small town in Ohio. This is set in like the early 1910s up until the 1940s, late 1940s, and it follows two black women, as I was saying, living in a town that is segregated outside of white society in America at the time. So not only does this discuss female friendships, but it also goes into complicated mother-daughter relationships, generational trauma, as well as what being a marginalized member of a community and society can mean. There's all of that happening in less than 180 pages. And not to mention, it's Toni Morrison, another fantastic writer. You don't need me to tell you that. She literally won the Nobel Prize in Literature. So please read Sula if you haven't. I would just say don't go into this expecting it to solely be about female friendship. It is, but it's so much more than that, as I was saying. Speaking of a really, really good book that I read in 2020, I read Intimations by Zadie Smith, and I think this is a really, really good short book. It's 97 pages. It's an essay collection, and it was written in 2020 as Zadie Smith is trying to capture those like initial moments of pre-pandemic up until the pandemic, that like state of having extra time, and then also faced with intense existential dread. But it's not, it didn't read to me like a true pandemic read. I think that it did a beautiful, beautiful job of capturing all of those like thoughts and fears and emotions that I experienced, and I'm sure a lot of people experience at the start of the pandemic. And in specific, one essay that I think about all the time in here, two essays actually, Something to Do, which, as I was saying before, goes into detail about time and what it means and how we feel it as humans, and what it means when something outside of our own control alters the time that we have to dedicate to ourselves or to our work and what we do with that. But then also there's another essay at the end of this called Contempt as a Virus, in which Zadie Smith discusses like systemic racism in America. Very, very good read. Very short, as I was saying, 97 pages. You can't beat it. Up next, if you are a spiritual baddie, if you are a person looking for some life advice, but you don't want like to read a traditional self-improvement, self-development book that is, in my opinion, always a hair too long, I would definitely recommend reading The Prophet by Kahil Gibran. This is 89 pages. All of the essays or passages take up like a few pages, if not, and they are on various aspects of love, life, and relationships. Very, very short, little beautiful snippets and nice reminders on various aspects of being alive and experiencing life. If you're looking for a quick read that has a lot of social, political commentary, I 100% recommend that you read Animal Farm by George Orwell. Even if you read this in school, in high school, and college, and you haven't read it recently, please do so. Animal Farm is such a good book. I love Animal Farm. Honestly, I think it deserves the same amount of hype that 1984 gets. But Animal Farm follows basically like an uprising on an animal farm, and it's all about power dynamics. Essentially, the premise of Animal Farm is that all of the animals run out the human who is running the farm, and then they set up their own like democracy and their own constitution basically, and we see what happens when the animals are left up to their own devices. I really enjoyed this. I love a good social, political commentary. The ending is an ending of a book that sticks with me to this day. Staying on the theme of satire and commentary, I would love to recommend Mona. I read this book this year as well, and it follows Mona, who is the main character. She's a Peruvian writer who gets nominated for a literary award. Her debut novel gets nominated for a literary award. So she goes to Sweden, I believe, to attend the conference. And at the end of the conference, the winner of the award will be announced. And you get like a whole bunch of money, all this like literary clout basically, and bragging rights. So it's all about pretentiousness, and there's absurdism at the end of it. And what I really enjoyed about this was that Mona is an unreliable narrator. You don't really know what happened. Something tragic does happen to her, and there is a huge content warning for SA, so just beware of that. But up next, I would love to recommend Natasha Brown's Assembly, one of my favorite books that I've read this year. Assembly follows an unnamed Black woman narrator living in London as she is climbing her financial career. She's ascending to the top of her financial career, and she is basically faced with the realizations and trying to come to terms with living in a society where you know wasn't built for you, or was built like on your marginalization as a person, and trying to survive despite all of that. This uses fragmentary style writing, so if you're not into that, if you don't really like when things don't have a cohesive plot or cohesive narrative, then I wouldn't recommend this for you. But otherwise, I do recommend it. Is one of my favorite books. And then the last two books that I'm going to recommend to you, one of them being one of my favorite books of all time, and that is Maggie Nelson's Bluets. Now this is for my poetry fans. Bluets is one of my favorite books ever because it is so unique, in my opinion, so well done, and it follows vignettes of reasons why the speaker of the book loves the color blue and what the color blue represents to them, how they interpret love through the color blue, sorrow, depression, universe, natural occurrences. I can't really explain to you exactly what this book is about. It's just something that I think you should go in and experience. Oh my god, I think about this book all the time. Just beautiful, stunning writing, contemplating philosophy, the natural world, literature, love, loss, just so many different things. And lastly, I would love to recommend Department of Speculation by Jenny Offill. Department of Speculation by Jenny Offill follows a woman's life essentially and her failing marriage, and she is trying to go back to the point exactly in which her marriage begins to fail. But I thought that this was so well done. Jenny Offill's writing has such a pace to it. This also has fragmentary style writing, but there's such a pace that you want to read this book as fast as possible. Like, that's just how well the writing flows to me. And she tries to make sense of her marriage through the lens of like cosmic happenings through literature. It is similar to Maggie Nelson's Bluets, where they pull like bits of philosophy, bits of science, bits of actual real life experience to make sense of what's going on microscopically in their lives and how these things have ripple effects and where they begin. It's just such a good book. I think people who also like women just kind of vibing and not really doing anything but versing the void, which is in itself a huge feat, you would 100% love this. So that was it. That was my very, very quick 10 books you should read for short attention spans. Shout out to all of us who are struggling. Shout out to all of us who now have TikTok brain, and we are just now beginning to see the psychological effects of a lot of information in short amounts of period. So hopefully these books can help you combat your short attention spans and get you to gradually read longer books if that's a goal of yours, or if you want to get back into reading. Hopefully these books help you out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you continue to enjoy the day or night whenever you're watching this, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.
And I was like, yo.